in the middle. It's hard to believe that we are quite literally one day away. I mean, this is Thanksgiving Eve. It's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday to you guys. I'm glad you made it back for another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about Trump's tariffs because it's all over the news. If you didn't see it, I'm sure you did if you pay any attention to the news. And I know some of you have checked out because the election cycle's over. And I hope maybe you're just taking a break for the holidays and you're going to come back because we have to pay attention to what's going on in Washington, D.C. It's the only way we actually fix things. But Trump's tariffs are all over the news because he just recently posted that he is going to do a 25% tariff on all products coming in from Mexico and Canada due to the open borders and the drugs coming in, and possibly 10% more on China. So we're going to get into that and talk about that today. And are we in the end stages of our republic? So I want to have a quick conversation about that. And then I want to talk, we're going to wrap it up with a little bit of Thanksgiving because it's tomorrow. And it's really crazy to me. And I said it on yesterday's episode that it's already Thanksgiving. Like 2024 is almost a wrap. And before we know it, it's going to be Thanksgiving of 2025. And I think the older you get, the faster time goes. I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but you guys let me know what you think. But before we get on to that, guys, as always, if you haven't went out and picked up a copy of my new book, We the Puppets, the audience for the best illusion ever performed, please do so. We're going to talk about it a little bit today on today's episode when we talk about, are we in the actual end stages of a republic? I caught a glimpse of an interview the other day that really, I address it in the book, and it really got me thinking that, if we don't get this right over the next 4 years, we very well could be in the end stages of our republic. But if you haven't went out and picked up a copy, please do so. You can do so over on Amazon.com. Just search We the Puppets, Justin Staten. That's Staten. And pick up your copy there. Or if you want a signed copy, you can go over to my website, justinstaten.com, and pick up a copy there as well. A little hat tip to William Ramsey Investigates. If you guys aren't aware of William Ramsey Investigates, it's a great podcast on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. And he also has a channel over on Rumble, and he's on X, formerly known as Twitter. Did an interview with him last night about the book, and it went really well. And I just really wanted to give a shout out to William Ramsey. If you haven't caught an episode of William Ramsey Investigates, I encourage you to do so over on Apple or Spotify. So yeah, the holidays are coming up, guys, and if you're looking for a stocking stuffer or an out of the box gift idea, We the Puppets would be that great gift. So pick it up today on Amazon or justinstaten.com. So yeah, Trump's tariffs are in the news again. That was a big part of the campaign. Everybody was saying, oh, tariffs are, going to raise prices, and, everybody's complaining about the economy and prices being high, and you're going to vote for somebody that's going to raise the prices even more through tariffs. And I just think there's like this common misconception or understanding about tariffs and the way Trump is going to utilize tariffs. And so I want to make sure we talk about it because I think there's a lot of confusion. I think there's a lot of people out there that just don't even understand how tariffs work in general. And their biggest argument for people who disagree with Trump and his use of tariffs, the biggest argument on that end is, well, if you're already concerned about rising prices, tariffs are just going to raise the prices even more because tariffs are essentially a tax on goods and services coming into our country. And no company pays the tax, right? They pass it on to the consumers. And on the surface, right, a surface level explanation, this is why I talk about in the book all the time. Like we have to get beyond first order sophistication, right? We have to start getting a little bit deeper in our analysis and our ability to look at complex situations and dive deeper into a third order sophistication, because it's in that third order sophistication or thought process that you'll see how these tariffs can be used strategically to incentivize production here in the United States and to keep our wealth here in the United States. So for all those people out there that are screaming and yelling and crying about Trump raising tariffs and how it's going to, destroy our economy, et cetera, it's like, you guys are missing the point. You've missed the boat. The economy has already been destroyed. And frankly, I don't know if we could set tariffs high enough to increase prices as great as the inflationary pressures that our own government has created by printing more and more money and operating on large, extremely large budget deficits. Because when you're printing more money, which we have done a lot of printing since 2018, 2019, uh, and you're putting more money out in the system that is chasing fewer goods and services, prices are going to go through the roof. And we've seen that in some categories. We've seen inflation as high as 30%. And so for those of you making the argument that tariffs are somehow going to be worse than the inflation that we've already experienced, I think you really need to do a deeper dive into what's going on in our economy, because the way that Trump plans on using the tariffs is a strategic way to not only incentivize people to buy products that are American made, but it will incentivize the production of more products here in the United States instead of allowing companies here, the biggest companies among us, the Fortune 500 companies, to produce all their goods and services overseas where they can get it manufactured for fractions of what you can manufacture it here. And then their margins, profit margins, just keep growing and growing and growing. That's partially why our wealth gap is widening and widening and widening, because we have sold out all of our production overseas. And the only way to incentivize bringing that production back here and spreading that wealth evenly amongst the middle class is to incentivize domestic production of things. And so I just kind of want to jump into this. And before I do, over on, I catch a lot of videos over on TikTok, and the older millennial over there, hat tip to him, he has a very good explanation of this. So I'm going to play this for you guys, and then I'm just going to give you my commentary on it on the other side. So here you go. Let's go, older millennial.
Do these liberals not understand that this is the point? Like, this is the goal. Walmart CFO signals that price hikes may be coming because of Donald Trump's tariffs. Yeah, we fully expect price hikes on foreign products because we will only be applying tariffs to foreign products. Look, Aaron, I recognize you probably have no fucking idea how tariffs work. So let me tell you how this is going to happen. We're going to put tariffs on the foreign products that Walmart brings in, which will raise the cost of the foreign products and allow the American companies to compete with them to actually be able to compete on price, thereby incentivizing people to buy American, which would lead to that American company being able to lower their prices because they're finally getting volume. Therefore, what you have is foreign products, which are going to be significantly more expensive, and you have American products where the company is able to lower their price because they're able to sell in volume. But yeah, if you want to continue to buy foreign, shit's going to be more expensive. But if you're willing to buy the American product, which is actually employing people here in the US, they actually have to pay their employees a real wage with real benefits and keeping the money here in the United States economy, yeah, you're going to get a better price if you go with the American companies. So, Aaron.
Yeah, so there you go. I'm going to stop it there. But if you haven't given the older millennial a follow over on TikTok or Twitter, I think he's on Twitter too, please do so. But yeah, so the idea here, guys, there's two ways to use these tariffs, right? One is, what the older millennial was talking about, which we want to incentivize the purchase of American products, right? To spur American productivity, because the only genuine sign of a healthy economy is genuine productivity. And what we find ourselves with today is not genuine productivity. All of our productivity, or the vast majority, I should say, I don't want to speak in absolutes here, but the vast majority of our productivity happens overseas in places like China. And when we are not producing stuff here, we lose jobs. Our wealth doesn't stay here. And it actually provides higher margins and more wealth in the elites, and where you see the wealth gap widening. And so all things that don't help the middle class. That's why you've seen an erosion of the middle class. That's why you've seen an erosion of real wages. I mean, we haven't seen real wages increased since the last time Trump was in office. And prior to Trump's last term in office, it had been like 40 years since we had seen real wage increase in America. So the whole idea of the tariffs, even if initially, and I'll agree with everybody else, and I know there's a lot of people out there that disagree on this tariffs thing, and that's fine. And I agree with everybody on this sentiment that even if the cost of some products goes up initially, it's important to still do it. Why? Because even though the prices may go up, you're creating actual productivity in America, which will create volume production, right? Because if that good is too expensive that's coming in from overseas for you to buy, there's an American company that sells a similar product. And if you start buying that product, which if the tariffs are high enough on that foreign product, and you can buy the American product for slightly less, now you're incentivizing production at that company. And if production is incentivized for long enough and the volume is good enough, then they're producing at levels here in America whereby they can lower their prices. So, yes, initially there's going to be a little pain, a little bit higher price, but the long run economic stability this would bring, incentivizing productivity to our country, is what we actually need to increase real wage growth, to actually have an economy that's built on genuine productivity and not borrowing, which is the economy we have now. See, we ship all of our manufacturing and productivity overseas, and then we borrow money to buy it. So it's basically a house of cards, and it's unsustainable. And we're seeing how unsustainable it is. I mean, we have the Rust Belt in America for a reason. It's called the Rust Belt because of all the old manufacturing and decaying buildings that used to employ millions of Americans when we had genuine productivity here in America before NAFTA, before we opened up the trade agreements with Canada and Mexico, before we opened up free trade with China. We had an economy that was genuinely built on productivity, which is why we've seen such wealth creation in the middle class in the 40s, post World War II, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And it was around the 70s that we started opening up trade with China, officially, well, talks of trade with China. And then Bill Clinton in the 90s just kind of ripped the whole thing open and said, yeah, let's sign NAFTA and let's open trade permanently with China. And our wealth doing that has literally built the Chinese country and the economy. I mean, it is Americans' wealth that built China. If you go back and look at pictures and do this, like I spent some time over this Thanksgiving weekend checking this out. If you go back and Google pictures of Shanghai in the late 80s or early 90s versus pictures of it now, it is two different things, right? It's amazing to see the metamorphosis that happened and the growth that happened in China. And that was all fueled by America's wealth. It was all fueled by shipping our manufacturing to China. And in that same time period, we've seen a crazy widening in our wealth gap. We've seen real wages stagnate during this entire period. The only thing good that came out of NAFTA and free trade with China was the wealthiest among us and the wealthiest companies and the biggest companies just got wealthier and bigger. That has not trickled down in any way to the middle class. And so when we can incentivize genuine productivity, even if initially it increases prices, it's the way to go. Because if we can increase volume production here, we can get our prices down domestically. But then all that wealth stays here domestically in the United States, which gets more evenly spread amongst the middle class. So for all of you out there, and it blows my mind that liberals, of all people, who claim they want what's best for the little guy, right, and the oppressed and all that, don't want to incentivize productivity here in the United States. And so I just don't understand the argument. Yes, initially, it will raise prices. Initially, but we have to spur the incentive of producing here in the United States. That has to happen. Otherwise, we'll never have a chance of having an economy, once again, that's built on genuine productivity. And a lot of you say, oh, well, we're the economy's changing. We're relying more on technology, et cetera, et cetera. Well, with the advent of AI, most of your service level jobs are going to be eliminated through AI. So if we don't do this at some point, what is our economy actually going to be built on? Because if you don't have an economy built on actual productivity of goods and services that are domestically made, then you don't have an economy. And I think we're slowly getting there. And I think tariffs, that's one way. And the second way that we can strategically use tariffs is to prevent companies from continuing to ship manufacturing overseas or south of the border, north of the border, et cetera. Because if let me just give you an example of John Deere, where Trump has already told John Deere, if you move your manufacturing facilities to Mexico, we are going to put like a 200% tariff, and I'm ad-libbing here, on all your products that you try to ship back into the United States. Now, why would he do that? So that he can make tractors more expensive for farmers? No, it's so that we don't lose all those manufacturing jobs to Mexico. That's why. And you're not incentivized as a company to move your manufacturing south where you can pay people less and manufacture your stuff for way cheap and then ship it back. All that company is doing is trying to widen their profit margin. That's it. They're not vested in their local community. They don't care about the workers. They don't care about the people who have depended on those jobs for 10, 20, and 30 years. They don't care. They just care about profit margins. Yeah, and on paper and for investors, that looks amazing. But for that whole community that would be devastated by that manufacturing facility being moved to Mexico, and this has happened over the last 40 years, guys, 30 years, this has been going on, where we've watched whole communities almost die because companies only cared about the profit margin. They didn't care about their communities. And they were so short-sighted, blinded by greed, that they moved their manufacturing south. And all Trump has said is, hey, if you're going to continue to do that, and if you're not going to bring manufacturing back to the United States, we're going to make it so expensive for you to sell your products back to our citizens that you will just move the plants back here and create jobs. You know, I got to see this in real time as a kid growing up in Dayton, Ohio, and watching the GM plant there in Dayton, Ohio, in Moraine, just closed down. That plant there in Moraine, which is just outside of Dayton, it propped up several communities: Moraine, West Carrollton, Kettering, Dayton proper, right? Huber Heights. There were so many people that were employed. That community was completely different. And when that plant shut down, it damn near killed those communities in Dayton. And the only reason that plant shut down is because GM wanted to move manufacturing south of the border. Now they'll tell you is because, they couldn't afford the workers or their union agreements or whatever. But it was literally to improve their profit margin. And what Trump is saying is that can't happen anymore because the short-sightedness of our past, right? These companies and corporations that were just trying to get a beefier margin for their investors was short-sighted, because the biggest point that they miss in all of this is that rising tides raise all boats. So if you have a rising tide in the middle class of wealth creation and money in the middle class, it's only going to make those people who are wealthy and who are running these companies more wealthy, especially when we're already incentivizing our citizenry to consume. The only difference is they can consume without debt because they actually have good jobs, good paying jobs with good insurance and good benefits. And they don't have to borrow as much money, which of course the financial institutions don't like because they make trillions of dollars off of interest on loans. And it's sad that everybody is working to literally pillage the pockets of the American people. And Trump sees this because he understands the concept that a wealthy middle class is a wealthy America. That rising tides genuinely raise all boats. And there is a tool that we can utilize to try to incentivize this genuine productivity and bringing manufacturing and companies back to the United States, and that's called tariffs. Disincentivize companies, foreign and domestic companies, disincentivize them from sending jobs across borders out of the United States. Will there be some initial pain? Probably, but I can't imagine the pain being any worse than the rampant inflation that our own government has put upon us through bad monetary policy and propping up companies, the same elitist companies that sold our jobs overseas. We've printed trillions of dollars just to keep a lot of these propped up, mainly in the financial markets. And it's just wrong. And I think Trump wants to fix it. So will there be some temporary pain for long-term gain? Maybe. I think so. But I can't imagine that pain is going to be any worse than the pain we've already experienced through rampant inflation. And you guys are missing that part of the argument. And it's a very important part of the argument. But, instead, we're going to use this first order sophistication where the most simple answers are the only ones that win out. Oh, well, tariffs raise prices on goods. Yeah, okay. There's a grain of truth to that, but that's not the whole context of the bigger picture here. The bigger picture here is we need to bring manufacturing and genuine productivity back to the United States. That's the only way our economy grows. That's the only way the middle class flourishes, and rising tides raise all boats. So if the middle class is strong and the middle class has more wealth, then all you wealthy out there, the elitist among us, you will also become more wealthy. And you're just short-sighted. You've been so short-sighted for like 30, 40, 50 years now that it's ridiculous. So I am all in favor of using tariffs strategically to not only make sure no more companies leave and decimate communities by taking their manufacturing across the border and going south, but also disincentivizing them from doing their manufacturing in places like China and then shipping it back over here for, pennies on the dollars. And from foreign companies taking advantage of those free trade agreements where, we're taking the wealth out of the American people's pockets. We're pillaging their pockets, and we're literally sending it to these other countries. And tariffs can turn the tide. Tariffs, because, hey, I believe in free trade, but not at the expense of the American people, right? It's got to be win-win. Can't be win-lose, where we're the ones constantly losing and we're pillaging the pockets of the middle class of America just so all these other countries and these corporations in our country can get wealthier. It shouldn't work like that. And I think strategic tariffs will help to solve that problem. But you guys let me know what you think. Comment. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Tell me if you think I'm crazy. Are we in the end stage of our republic here? I caught this episode or this quick interview with Jimmy Dore on Tucker Carlson's podcast, and I want to share this with you because I talk about this in the book, and Jimmy Dore makes some really good points here that we might be in the end stages of a republic, and that you might not realize it, but Trump is not the problem. He is not the reason for this end stage, like a lot of people and a lot of you out there, especially on the left, think. Check this out.
We're in the end stage republic, and people don't realize it. They think Trump's the problem. People willing to vote for Trump is a system of a uniparty problem that has been squashing workers for the last 50 years. I've had people say to me, Jimmy, January 6th undermined our democracy. I'm like, you're adorable because we don't live in a democracy. We live in a flat-out oligarchy, which was proven by a Princeton study over 10 years ago. Your democracy was stolen by corporations 50 years ago. When are you going to get pissed off about that?
Is it that people don't want to see how deep the rot is, how big the problem is?
It's hard for them to believe that Barack Obama was a problem. I've had people, he's the best president of my lifetime. No, he was the best speaker. He made you feel good. Again, there's a reason why he got more money from Wall Street than John McCain. There's a reason why he dropped more bombs than George Bush. There's a reason why he destroyed Libya. Oh, that was a mistake. Why does Dick Cheney and George Bush still walk to Europe? Barack Obama was supposed to prosecute them because they ordered a worldwide torture program. And Barack Obama's constitution required to prosecute them, and he didn't. We're in the end stage republic, and people don't realize it.
Oh, my bad. I was a little behind on turning it off there. But I think Jimmy Dore makes a lot of good points, and mainly because I write about every single one of these in my book, We the Puppets. This whole problem of the uniparty. And I do think if we're not careful and if we don't get this right over the next 4 years, guys, this could actually be the end of our republic as we know. And he mentions a couple things there. The uniparty, that our country's been hijacked by oligarchy, and I would argue plutocracy on top of that. And but the oligarchy being that our country was literally, we were sold out for corporations years ago. And I write literally about this in the book, We the Puppets. And so I encourage you guys to go pick up a copy. I promise I'm not trying to keep plugging it, but I think it's a very I lay all of this out, and I just think it's a very important topic because we are officially on the verge of going off the cliff. And I think that, and people just instinctively know that. They may not be able to articulate that, but I think people in America just instinctively know, like, we're on the precipice of the republic dying. And I think that's why people of all demographics showed up and voted for Trump in this cycle. Because they're like, well, the system, the establishment isn't going to get it right. So we have to go with the outsider. We have to go with Trump. We have to go with the guy that they're attacking and trying to throw in jail because it seems like he's the only one that really wants to make a difference. And how do we know he's the only one that wants to make a difference? Because he's the only one they're trying to throw in jail. And I think the American people just instinctively know it's really bad right now. And so they voted for Donald Trump. But I agree that our country has been sold out to the oligarchy. I don't mean to keep beating this to death, but I write about it in the book how what we have in America genuinely is two democracies at this point, right? We have the democracy that we were taught growing up, the one where it's a government of the people, for the people, by the people, and the American dream reigns supreme, right? That we grow up learning that, citing the Pledge of Allegiance. We pledge our allegiance to the Republic and the American dream, and we'll fight and die for the Constitution and for free markets and freedom and liberty and et cetera, et cetera. That's one democracy in America. But the other one is a democracy of the establishment, the institutions, right? And you're seeing this play out. And I think a lot of Americans see this, but they can't put their finger on exactly what it is, and they struggle to articulate what they're seeing in real time. Well, I can tell you what you're seeing in real time is two democracies at play. There's the one that we're promised that gets no time and no attention anymore. And then there's the democracy of the institutions, which gets all the time and all the attention because that's where all the money is. And that's the democracy of the corporations and their needs and their wants and their desires. The media, right? The bureaucracies, the bloated bureaucratic system that we have in DC, and the millions of people that take part in those bureaucracies. It's the political elite, that establishment. It's the media establishment, all working together for that democracy. So when you hear people saying, "Oh, democracy's under attack because of Donald Trump," that is the democracy they are referring to. They're not referring to the democracy of the people, by the people, and for the people, because that democracy has already been put on the back burner. That one's already been sold out to the oligarchy and the plutocracy that we have here in America. So if you find yourself struggling to articulate, what you're seeing, that's what it is. One democracy, the one of the people and by the people, which is our democratic, our constitutional republic. That's the one we've been promised. That's the one we've been taught. That one doesn't exist anymore in America. And that's the one we have to take back. That's the one we're fighting for. That's the one Donald Trump ran on and campaigned for and got elected for, to protect, save, and bring back that democracy. The other democracy that the elites and all those and the bubble people talk about, guys, that's the democracy of institutions. And if you want to go a little bit deeper dive in it, just pick up a copy of the book, We the Puppets, and you guys can literally, we get into that literally in chapter 1 and chapter 2 of the book. So if you want to get into a deeper dive, I want to leave it there. But I do think, if you want a deeper dive, just pick up a copy of the book. But I do think we could be, and I think we have been. I mean, I've talked about this openly, that we're in the end stages of this republic. And I think at this point, like if we don't start, if we don't have things like Doge to go in and clean up the bloated government, if we don't start taking like a lot of fat off here with the bureaucracies, get rid of the, career bureaucrats, the revolving door. We need term limits in Congress. There's so many things that need to be done in a very short order, in a short amount of time. And if we fail to do this, I think we could seriously be looking at the end of our constitutional republic as we know it. And it's interesting to me that there's been people talking about this for 20 plus years, and they've all been labeled conspiracy theorists. Of course, this goes back to groupthink and first order sophistication, et cetera. But for 20 years, all these people have been, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're fringe, right? But it's funny to me how now it's starting to get airtime. People are starting to listen. And I think the advent of social media, alternative places to go get your knowledge and your news and have these conversations exist now. And it's becoming more mainstream that there's an actual real problem here. And people are actually picking up and listening, because I think we're, for the first time in a long time, actually in danger. And I think all of you know it too, instinctively, even if you haven't been able to articulate the danger or where we might be going. I know you feel it. And we got a lot of work to do. We have a ton of work to do to get this figured out. So I want to also bring up, I talked yesterday about Matt Gaetz and this whole thing about how he was nominated. And I kind of wondered it. So I brought up this notion, like, I kind of wondered if, was Donald Trump really playing chess here, right? Instead of checkers with this nomination of Matt Gaetz, because Matt Gaetz, since the day he stepped into Congress, has been a firebrand, right? He's not been somebody that has played nice with the establishment in Washington, D.C. And a part of me wonders if Trump knew, but didn't know who was going to not support his nominations, regardless of who that nomination was. Who's still an establishment turd and who's not. And I'm going to play this video here real quick. I just a few seconds of it because I think it's important. And then we're going to talk about it on the backside here. So let me go ahead and play this for you guys. And then
Trump called Gaetz and told him he didn't have the votes. And NBC reports at least 5 Republicans were a firm no on Gaetz, as in nothing was changing their minds, as in even if Gaetz recited the Bible from memory at his hearing. Those senators are Mitch McConnell, Murkowski, Collins, Mullen, and Curtis. Fetterman, not surprised.
Yeah, so I'm just going to leave it there. I just wanted to play that first couple seconds from Jesse Waters' show where he talked about that. 5 Republican senators that said absolutely, positively no to Matt Gaetz, even if he could recite the entire Bible by heart. And I think that's hilarious. If you understand the troll of that joke, kudos to you. But even if he could recite the whole Bible by heart, we'll never vote for Matt Gaetz. And so there's this part of me, and I mentioned it on yesterday's episode, that wonders, did Trump do this on purpose, right? Because he knows Matt Gaetz is a firebrand. He also knows that all these allegations, and Candace Owen actually broke a story on this, I think yesterday. So if you haven't seen the whole story she broke about the Matt Gaetz accusations, go over and check out Candace Owen's channel. She did a phenomenal job, but basically it's a hatchet job, right? It's a hit piece. The DOJ knows that. They actually tried to shake down Matt Gaetz' family and his dad for $25 million. Saying, oh, we've got all these accusations about you, and it pay us $25 million, it'll go away. It's really shameful. And it shows you how much of a cesspool Washington, D.C. truly is. But go watch that. I'm not going to belabor that too much, but go watch that segment Candace Owens did. It was really good. But I can't get over this idea that I think Trump is going to root out in all the halls of Congress, in all the bureaucracies. I think half of his picks are to get a gauge on who's actually with him and who's not. And more importantly, who is for overturning the establishment and busting up the status quo and who is not. And I think he might have dangled Matt Gaetz out there. And I think you're going to see Matt Gaetz' name again. I said this in a previous episode. I think you're going to see his name again. I don't think Matt Gaetz is out of a Trump administration. But I kind of wonder if this was done on purpose, where he dangled Matt Gaetz out there just to get a gauge of which senators and which U.S. representatives just want to keep the status quo intact in D.C. because Matt Gaetz would have went in with a hatchet and flipped over the apple cart in DOJ. It 100% would have flipped it over, and it wouldn't have been nice. He wouldn't have been nicey nice about it. He would have just went in there and flipped it over day one. I think Pam Bondi's going to do the same thing. I just think she's going to have a more softer approach to it. But I think the change is coming. So I'm curious, and I don't want to spend too much time on this and stick on this because I kind of wanted today's episode to be relatively quick leading into Thanksgiving here. I've got a few things to do today and getting ready for the Thanksgiving holiday for tomorrow, but it'll be interesting to see. And I would keep your eye on these 5 Republicans. And Mitch McConnell's kind of doesn't really matter. I think he's done. He's going to step aside, step down, whatever, which is a good thing. He needs to go. Mitch McConnell's been around far too long. He's gotten too many years of influence peddling in his resume. So it is time for him to go. But keep an eye on these other Republicans because these are senators that we need to be ready to primary the next time they're up. And I know some of them just got reelected out of those 5. I think 2 had just been reelected. And keep in mind, guys, 1/3 of the Senate is up for reelection every cycle. So if they're not going to play ball, we've got to primary them. And we all have to band together as a country and as citizens to make sure that we vote for whoever we are putting in place to primary these people. Because all the money in the world won't save them if we vote. It doesn't matter how much money they spend, doesn't matter how much money they raise, and stop giving them your money, by the way. Stop giving the Democrat Party your money. Stop giving the Republican Party your money. Stop giving candidates your money. Stop. Just go vote. Voting is free. Voting is 100% free. It costs you nothing to go vote for the right person. The more important thing to do is for us to be coordinated and organized as a people so that when it's time to vote, we can talk to people in those communities, get good candidates that we like, and then make sure we vote for them. Make sure that these career-long politicians go bye-bye, right? Let's vote them out. So keep your eye on these 5 Republicans because I think we're going to have to primary them. I don't think they're going to go along. I don't think they care about changing the status quo. I think they're establishment people. They're political elitists, and they are benefiting from being in office in more ways than just their salary and benefits. And you guys know what I'm talking about. And I don't think they want to give all that up. So keep your eye on those 5 Republicans. So a long time ago, we were in not much of a different time than I think we are today. And leading into Thanksgiving, I kind of wanted to read this for you guys because, I just think it's important given where we're at as a country and, some of the strife that we've seen, the closeout of this election. So just bear with me here while I send us into Thanksgiving and kind of wrap up the show today. The year that is drawing to a close has been filled with blessings of fruitful fields and healthful skies. These bounties, so constantly enjoyed that we often forget their source, have been accompanied by extraordinary gifts that cannot fail to touch even the most indifferent hearts. Despite a civil war of unmatched magnitude and severity, which has at times seemed to invite foreign aggression, peace has been preserved with all nations. Order has been maintained and laws have been respected and obeyed. Harmony has prevailed everywhere except on the battlefield, where military conflict continues. However, even there, the theater of war has been greatly reduced by the advancing armies and navies of the Union. The need to divert wealth and strength to national defense has not halted the plow, the shuttle, or the ship. Settlements have expanded. Aided by the axe, mines of iron, coal, and precious metals have yielded more abundantly than before. Population has steadily increased despite the losses on the battlefield. The nation, strengthened and invigorated, looks forward to the coming years with hope for greater freedom. These blessings are not the result of human wisdom or effort. They are the gracious gifts of the Most High God, who, while chastising us for our sins, has remembered mercy and remained merciful. It seems fitting and proper that these blessings should be solemnly, reverently, and gratefully acknowledged by the whole American people. I therefore invite my fellow citizens in every part of the United States, whether at sea or abroad, to set aside and observe the last Thursday of November as a day of thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent Father who dwells in the heavens. I also recommend, while offering thanks for these blessings, that we approach with humble penitence for our national sins and disobedience, commend to God's tender care all those who have become widows, orphans, mourners, or sufferers due to the ongoing civil strife, and fervently implore the Almighty to heal the nation's wounds and restore it in accordance with his divine purposes to the full enjoyment of peace, harmony, tranquility, and union. Signed October 3rd, 1863, by President Abraham Lincoln. That, my friends, is how Thanksgiving became a national holiday. During a time of extreme strife and actual civil war that tore this country apart and pitted brother against brother, friend against friend, countrymen against countrymen. And I think at times we've come close to the same level of strife, a country divided. And Abraham Lincoln said, a house divided cannot stand. And so I just wanted to remember the words of Abraham Lincoln, a reminder of how Thanksgiving came to be. It's not a religious holiday, right? It is a holiday for giving thanks for all that we do have. To look at the challenges that we have and the challenges that we've overcome and the challenges that we must still overcome. And remembering that no matter what, through all the flaws, all the sins of this nation, we have always found a way to get through. I know there are a lot of people out there right now saying you shouldn't go spend Thanksgiving with your family or friends. If they voted differently than you should not grace them with your presence, because if they didn't vote the same way as you, they voted against you. And guys, that is simply not true. It is just simply not true. And I would implore you to go spend Thanksgiving with your family and friends, because family is the bedrock of America. Family is the bedrock of what makes America great. Family is the bedrock of what has made America into the country that it is. And family, at the end of the day, is the only thing that we have. And I think it's extremely unhealthy for people to tell you to not spend Thanksgiving, a day where we should be thankful for all those that we love and care about, that you shouldn't attend. I think it's very unhealthy, and I think you should listen. And I would implore you to remember the words of Abraham Lincoln, who set forth in our country in 1863 Thanksgiving as a national holiday here in America. And he did so to try and heal the nation's wounds and restore it. And so that we could have full enjoyment and remembrance that, what we really seek here in America is peace, harmony, tranquility, and unionship, where people from all walks of life, different races, creeds, and color come together and make this the most amazing country on earth. And I ask that you guys not forget that on this Thanksgiving 2024. And remember the words of Abraham Lincoln. That's it, guys. That's all I have for today. Programming note, I will not be doing a show, obviously, tomorrow. I will be running the interview that I did with William Ramsey Investigates on Friday for the episode. So you can check back on Friday. And I will be on a radio show on Friday, and it's already slipping my mind. It is because I want to tell you guys, so if you want to tune in, you can. I'm sorry, I gotta find it. Here, I can find it real quick. I'm looking for the email. This is welcome to Justin's life of the Rob Carson show. There we go. Bad programming because I can't find. So the Rob Carson radio show, it's syndicated radio show all across America. I think Rob will actually be on vacation this week. So I will be doing I think it's a 10-minute spot or 15-minute spot with Mary Walter, who's going to be his host while he is in hiatus. And we're going to talk a little bit about the book. So if you guys are in any of the area radio shows for the Rob Carson show, tune in, check it out. I'll be going on at 2:35. I'm excited to talk to Mary the day after Thanksgiving, but I will not be doing a regularly scheduled episode, but I will do the replay of the William Ramsey Investigates podcast, because I think you guys are going to like it. William and I had a great conversation, and I'm just going to repurpose that content so I can enjoy the day with my family. But if you get bored and need something to listen to, by all means, check in the podcast on Friday. But that's all I got for today, guys. I love you. Thanks for coming back for another episode of In the Middle. It means the world to me. And until we meet again, you guys know, stay informed, stay strong, but most importantly, guys, stay in the fight. Okay, have a happy Thanksgiving, guys.